On this episode of SportChaser, the NBA season is upon us. All 30 teams will battle it out once again for a chance to win the Larry O'Brien Championship Trophy. Stay tuned for my full NBA standings, awards, and championship predictions at the very end. Everything you need to know before the first tip-off coming right up on SportChaser. Welcome back to another episode of SportChaser. I'm Chase Sotsky, your host, as usual, talking about today the NBA. The NBA starts today on Tuesday as the day that you guys are seeing this. Today, I'm recording it on Monday. And today, we have a great episode coming. As I said in the introduction, everything you need to know about the NBA season before tip-off, starting with the Western Conference standings, the Eastern Conference standings, my award predictions, and lastly, my championship predictions. And we're going to start out in the Western Conference with the number one seed from last year and my number one seed this year, the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're coming off of a championship win, their first in franchise history, led by MVP Shai Alexander. Last year, they were the one seed, and they had the biggest margin between a one seed and a two seed of all time. And this year, you could argue that they're even better. Shai Alexander is going to be in the MVP conversation yet again. The Oklahoma City Thunder did what every championship team should do with their young players, re-sign them. And they did so on long-term contracts with Shai Alexander, J-Dub, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren, all getting big-time extensions. And with the dominance that this team had last year, going into this season with the same core, the same young core, who is only supposed to be improving and entering their prime, this team could be scary for the league. We have not seen a repeat champion in the NBA since the 2018 season when the Warriors did it back when they had Kevin Durant. This team has a legit chance to do just that. And the reason for that is because their offense has been incredible and their defense has too. Their offense was the fourth highest scoring team in the league. Their defense was the third best defense in the league. And not only just that, they are young. Alex Caruso was the only player on the entire team last year who played more than 10 minutes a game in the playoffs over the age of 27. This team is young, they're hungry, and now they're well experienced. That is a potential recipe for disaster for the rest of the league, and that is a huge reason why they were so successful last year. The Oklahoma City Thunder, they will be the one seed in the Western Conference. I don't think that anyone else will be able to jump them. Moving on to my number two seed, the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets made huge additions this offseason, led by Nikola Jokic, who just had his statistical best season of his entire career. He averaged 29.6 points per game, 10.2 assists, and 12.7 rebounds. He is the only player ever to be top three in each of those three categories. And not only do they have Nikola Jokic, who may be the best player in the entire world, they have the best supporting cast around him that they've had maybe ever. They made huge additions this offseason, and even last season after firing Mike Malone, they looked much better in the end of the season as they did early on. And in the playoffs, they were able to go further than people expected, pushing the Thunder to 7 games despite getting blown out in Game 7. But I talked about additions in the offseason. Again, they fired Mike Malone and they have a new head coach. They traded away Michael Porter Jr. to get a more efficient Michael Porter Jr. and Cam Johnson. And not only that, they brought back Bruce Brown. They added Tim Hardaway Jr. and they added Jonas Valanciunas. Last year when Jokic was on the court, this was a top 5 team. Without Jokic on the court, they were not good. And now with these additions, they should see some improvement in that department. Jamal Murray needs to step up. He had a slightly down year last year, and he's battled injuries in the past. Aaron Gordon has battled injuries in the past. If Jamal Murray can step up and stay healthy, if Aaron Gordon can step up and stay healthy, as well as this depth that the Denver Nuggets now have, this team can go far. I have them as my 2 seed. The Houston Rockets just acquired Kevin Durant. They lost Fred VanVleet, but I want to talk about Kevin Durant for a second. This guy might be 37 years old, but he is one of the best offensive scorers of all time, and he's getting added to a team that needs offensive scoring. Last year, this was one of the best defensive teams in the league. They're young, they're hungry, they're determined to beat you in every aspect, offensively and defensively, and now they just added the greatest scorer of our entire generation. Kevin Durant coming to this team is a match made in heaven. I believe will be the 3 seed because of it. Not only that, they have a lineup that is scary, and they might run it in the first game of the season. I'm going to call it their tall ball lineup because they have 5 guys starting who are all 6'7" and above. And not only just that, 4 of those guys are 6'10" and above, including Kevin Durant himself, who would be placed at the 2 in this lineup. Think about that. That's scary. You want a shooting guard guarding Kevin Durant, or Kevin Durant guarding a shooting guard? A 6'11" athletic freak of nature guarding a 6'5" shooting guard? Really? Or getting guarded by a 6'5" shooting guard? That's scary. This Rockets team is also awaiting a breakout from Amen Thompson, possibly Reed Shepherd in Fred VanVleet's absence as he's out for the entire season. But Reed Shepherd's looked good last year in the Summer League. He looked good this year in the preseason. If he can break out and have a real role as a facilitator for this team, the sky is the limit. And I have them as my 3 seed in the Western Conference. Next up, the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I know what you're thinking. Last year, their regular season was not great, but I think that they had some learning curves as a new team. After trading Karl-Anthony Towns the offseason prior, getting Julius Randle, adding Dante DiVincenzo, this mix was new. But now they're returning 7 of their 8 top guys from last year. The one missing, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I do think that that will have some effect on the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think their continuity will impress more than the loss of Nickeil Alexander-Walker will hurt. And with that, I also think that Rob Dillingham or Terrence Shannon Jr. have the opportunity to step up. If they don't step up, this team could be looking at the same problems that they had last year without a real playmaker. I think either Anthony Edwards will step up in that facilitator role, or Terrence Shannon Jr. or Rob Dillingham will need to, because this team needs a facilitator. That's something that they lacked last year. But this year, I believe that they will now have some continuity. They know how to play with each other. They made it all the way to the Western Conference Finals. And despite it not being a great performance, I think this team is built to perform in the regular season. And moving on to the 5th seed, the Golden State Warriors. Post-trade deadline after acquiring Jimmy Butler, they looked amazing. Jimmy Butler was a huge addition to this team who needed a second guy who can score as well as defend, and they got just that. And once Curry went down in the playoffs, despite winning the first round against the Rockets, they did not look great against the Timberwolves. But I think that this is the Warriors' last chance to prove that they can contend. And I think Steph kind of knows that. This team is going to come out hungry and determined to show that they are not done just yet. They're one of the older teams in the league, but despite that, with Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Steve Kerr, they've proved that any game is not out of reach, and with the addition of Jimmy Butler, I still think that this team can go far, and I think in the regular season, they will be the 5 seed. One thing to note is Jonathan Kuminga. He's taken on much more of a facilitator type of role so far in the preseason. Whether or not it translates to the regular season, we don't know, but he'll be in the talks once again when the trade deadline comes around. You'll hear his name, Jonathan Kuminga, which we've heard in years prior. I don't know if the Warriors are going to trade him. I feel like that's something that we hear every year, and I don't know whether or not this is the year that they finally trade him or not. It's too hard to predict for me to assume whether or not he stays or it goes. But for the sake of right now, he's on the team, and I think that the Warriors are going to be able to win, get the 5 seed in the Western Conference. That is absolutely loaded. Next up, the Clippers. I'm not going to talk about this Kawhi investigation with the sponsorship deals and all this and all that. I do think that that may have an effect on Kawhi's season and the Clippers season as a whole. But for the sake of this video, I'm not going to talk about that because we really don't know where that's going to be going. Starting out, Kawhi Leonard last year, when he was healthy, was one of the best players in the league. We've always said that about Kawhi. But the truth is, he hasn't been able to stay healthy often. And that's been his biggest problem. But the Clippers addressed that in the offseason. When it comes to a guy's health, you can't tell him to stay healthy. That doesn't work. The doctors do everything they can. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So what do you have to do? You have to get good depth. Because if your depth can perform when your star guys are out, that goes a long way. And they did just that. They brought in Bradley Beal. They brought in Brook Lopez. They brought in John Collins. And they brought in Chris Paul for his last year. Whether or not the Clippers can get a ring for Chris Paul's final season is yet to be determined. But these depth pieces, although you may be thinking to yourself, if this was 2021, this team would be unstoppable. And you're right, because they also have Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, and Ivica Zubac, along with solid role players who have been with them for a while and know how to go far. This team is deep, and I know that a lot of people are high on them this season. I think they'll be the 6th seed. I think there are a lot of guys who are going to want the ball. They're going to have some issues early in the season with chemistry. I think that it might be a little bit of a slow start for the Clippers. I think they'll get hot at some point in the year. I think they'll be the 6th seed. They're a playoff team, no doubt. And once they get to the playoffs, if they're healthy, can go far. But we shall see how far they are able to go, how far their health is able to take them, and how impactful these additions in the offseason are going to be for them. They have one of the top coaches in the league, so it's going to be an interesting year for these Clippers, but I have them as my 6th seed. Moving on to my 7th seed, the first team in the play-in tournament, I'm going with the San Antonio Spurs. That might not be the team that you thought that you were going to hear because you were expecting me to say the Lakers or somebody else. With Victor Wembanyama hopefully healthy for the entire season, him alongside De'Aaron Fox, now number 2 overall pick, Dylan Harper. They still have Keldon Johnson, Stephon Castle. This team has a plethora of youth and athleticism all over the court. This team will be scary for anyone to match up against. Wembanyama, he was expected to win the Defensive Player of the Year before he got injured. Once he went out, it actually became a race for DPOY. He's going to win it this year, and I'll talk about that later. But Victor Wembanyama is going to assert himself as one of the best players in the league, not just as one of the potential best players in the league. And that's all starts this season. In this offseason, he's been working out with Kevin Garnett, one of the most physical, aggressive players in NBA history. He's been working out with Hakeem Olajuwon. Could you imagine a physical, strong Victor Wembanyama who has a dream shake that you can't stop? Oh my God. Nobody's going to be able to stop that. He's going to be stronger than ever. He's going to be smarter than ever. He's already got the tools to shoot threes, to play make, to put you down low in the post you up, and even slam it on your head. He's 7'4". He's a freak athlete who I don't know how teams are going to be able to stop him this year. I'm expecting a huge breakout from Victor Wembanyama, and I am expecting a huge breakout from the San Antonio Spurs. And my 8th seed will be the Los Angeles Lakers. Yes. Here they are. Luka Doncic is going to be leading the way for this team, and he's looking slimmer and healthier than ever. On top of that, he is looking so determined. Last year was an emotional roller coaster for him. We saw him crying at the Mavericks game while they were playing his montage, and with Luka leading the way, that leaves Austin Reeves as the number 2. Will he have another breakout year? Probably. Austin Reeves is a great player, but Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, along with a subpar supporting cast, there are a lot of questions with this team, and it all starts yet again with the front court. DeAndre Ayton was brought in, but outside of DeAndre Ayton, the only guys that they have who can play the 5 are Jared Vanderbilt to play the small ball 5 and Jackson Hayes. Is that going to be enough? I'm not sure. I think they're going to have a hard time early on in the season until LeBron comes back, but once they do, their backcourt is phenomenal. Their front court, I just addressed, they have issues. But their backcourt, when they have LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, that's scary for opposing defenses to be able to stop. Luka is going to be the strongest version of Luka Doncic that we've ever seen. It would not surprise me if this team is higher than the 8th seed. I'm kind of expecting this to be the Lakers' floor. I can't see them being worse than the 8th seed. I could see them being as high as the 3 seed. But I'm just a little bit skeptical with LeBron out and what may potentially be his final year of his NBA career. I'm not going to talk about that yet because there's been nothing that's announced. He hasn't said anything, although he's hinted at it, and then also said that it was for a brand deal for his Hennessy once again. So whether or not LeBron James is retiring, we don't know, so I'm not really going to talk about that. But I do have the Los Angeles Lakers as the 8th seed. Now, this next one might surprise you guys, but I have the Portland Trail Blazers making the play-in tournament as the 9 seed. This Portland team is young. They are hungry, they are defensive, and they are deep. They brought back Damian Lillard, who's likely to be out for the entire season. I don't know if this team is going to be able to win while he's there, but Shaedon Sharpe just got re-signed. Toumani Camara just got re-signed. These are 2 young guys who just broke out and have been great for this team. I'm expecting Donovan Clingan to have a huge breakout season. Last year, his rookie year, he looked solid. And I'm expecting him to play even better in his sophomore season. He was reliable last year. I'm expecting him to even be in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. Scoot Henderson has flashed so many times as the future star for the Trailblazers. They just have so many guys on their team who are able to perform well on both sides of the ball. Their defense is their biggest strength. After the All-Star break, they had the 4th best defensive rating in the entire NBA. And the reason for that is because of guys that I've already mentioned, Toumani Camara, Donovan Clingan. But on top of that, they added Jrue Holiday this offseason to help out in the backcourt. And on top of that, Denny Avdija last season had his breakout year. First year with the Blazers after getting traded from Washington, Denny Avdija was incredible. I would not be surprised to see this team as a top 10 defensive team. I would not be surprised to see Denny Avdija continue his success from last year. Shaedon Sharpe have a bigger breakout. Donovan Clingan enter himself as an elite defender down low in the post. Don't be surprised if the Blazers make the playoffs this year. I have them as my 9 seed making the play-in tournament. Moving on to my 10 seed, the Dallas Mavericks. I'm not going to lie. This one's tough. It's hard to know where they're going to be because I don't even know who's going to play. Kyrie Irving is going to be out for at least the first half of the season, more than likely. Anthony Davis is one of the most injury-prone guys in the entire NBA. They just got the number 1 overall pick, Cooper Flag, who we all expect to be a great player in the NBA, as do I. However, I don't know how far the Mavericks will be able to go with Cooper Flag as their second option behind Anthony Davis. I'm worried about their guards. I'm worried about the wings. Down low, I'm not worried about them. Cooper Flagg is one of the most hype prospects, hype number 1 picks in recent memory. And he got drafted to the Dallas Mavericks. Whether or not you say the NBA is rigged because of that is on you. I'm not going to say that. But I don't know if he's going to come in year 1 and be the difference maker for Dallas. Last year, they missed the postseason. Yes, injuries made a big deal in that. However, they still missed it. And with Anthony Davis likely to, at some point in the season, just based off of his history, miss some time, as well as Kyrie Irving, who we know is going to miss some time, I just don't know how far this team's going to go. I'm a little skeptical. I think early on they're going to have some struggles. Their front court is great. Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis. But their backcourt scares me. And for that reason, I'm going to have them as a 10 seed. Moving on to another team that scares me, the New Orleans Pelicans. This team, every single year, gives you some kind of reason to have hope. You're like, oh my God, Zion Williamson has never looked better. Zion Williamson is playing great. Zion Williamson is injured. The Pelicans suck. New season. Zion Williamson is looking better than ever. And it's a repeating cycle. Every single year, I feel like we go into the season thinking the same thing. But now, I kind of believe it. Zion Williamson does look good. And not only does he look good, he actually looks in shape. Before he's looked good for Zion. Now he looks really good. I'll put up a picture of Zion Williamson, what he looks like now in media day or whatever it was. If he's able to stay healthy and on the court, this Pelicans team could go far. I could see them in the play-in tournament. I could see him in the playoffs. I'm not going to say that this West is absolutely loaded, but he's not the only problem when it comes to health. They also have Dejounte Murray, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, along with Zion Williamson, who all have battled injuries many times throughout the last couple of seasons. It's looking like that trade that the Pelicans made, getting Dejounte Murray and trading away Dyson Daniels and picks, is not looking so hot because Dyson Daniels is looking like one of the best guards, one of the best defensive guards that we've seen in a long time. But that being said, Dejounte Murray still can be a very good and effective and efficient player. But the question is, will he? He's the only guy of those 4 that I just named who's currently not healthy. But if he can get healthy and the other 3 can stay that way, alongside Jordan Poole, new acquisition, and Derek Queen, this team has a chance to make the playoffs. Trey Murphy last season looked incredible. He averaged with a career high 21 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, 3.5 assists, and he's only 25 years old. He's entering his 5th season with the Pelicans and looking to go far. Moving on to the next team, the Memphis Grizzlies. I don't trust this team. I'm just going to be blunt. I don't trust them. I like a lot of the pieces. I like Ja Morant. I like Jaren Jackson Jr. I like Santi Aldama. I just don't trust them. I have them as my 12 seed in the Western Conference. That's more so because I'm expecting big jumps from some of the teams that were below them last year. It's because I think losing Desmond Bane in the offseason is going to hurt their offensive efficiency. I know they acquired Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who's a great 3-and-D guy. They got him in that Desmond Bane trade. I just don't know how much that's going to help. This Memphis Grizzlies team scares me. I don't think they're going to be an elite offensive team. They're going to be an elite defensive team down low. But in the front court, how much of a difference is KCP really going to make? Ja Morant is kind of a liability, and he's also in trade conversations. If they are not doing good at the trade deadline, will they look to move him? And if they do, they'll drop even further down. I'm not high on the Grizzlies this year. I have them as my 12 seed. Moving on, 13 seed, the Phoenix Suns just traded away Kevin Durant. No longer have Bradley Beal. They now have Devin Booker leading the way alongside with new addition Jalen Green. Jalen Green has every opportunity to break out. He's a great offensive player. He needs to get more efficient. He has every opportunity to now in Phoenix, where he should be able to get a lot more touches in this offense. I just don't trust them. Their defense is going to be a liability for me. Despite bringing in Mark Williams and Kaman Maluach, I feel like this team will struggle, to be quite blunt. Dillon Brooks absolutely is a big help on the defensive side of the ball. And again, this conference is loaded, and I think that they're going to be the 13th seed. I don't think they're going to be a bad 13th seed. They'll probably win like 35 games. I just don't think that they're going to win enough to make the play-in tournament. And moving on, second last team in the Western Conference, the 14th seed Sacramento Kings. Again, similar to the Phoenix Suns, I don't trust them. They're on the older side, and they don't do anything great. They re-signed Keegan Murray. Wonderful. But DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, they're good. They're very good offensive scorers. They're okay defenders. They're not great on either side of the ball enough for me to feel comfortable putting them any higher than 14 in the Western Conference. And my last team in the West is going to be none other than the Utah Jazz. Adding Ace Bailey and Walter Clayton Jr. in the draft this year should be huge. Isaiah Collier, Philip Kowski, Taylor Hendricks. They have Larry Markkinen, Walker Kessler. All these guys are young. They have potential. I just don't think it's going to work out just yet. The Utah Jazz are 15, same where they were last year. And that leads me into the Eastern Conference, starting out with my number 1 seed, the New York Knicks. The Knicks came out and they looked strong last year, and I think they're going to do the same thing again. Last year, they were able to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. They beat the Celtics, despite the fact that Jason Tatum went down in that series. They looked like they were going to dominate that series even when he was healthy. They then did not look great in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Pacers, and I think that now, after firing Coach Tibbs, Mike Brown is going to step in and make a big difference. He did so in Sacramento. I still don't know why he was fired from there. Despite that Sacramento team being full of talent and promising young players, the New York Knicks are just better, and I think Mike Brown's going to be able to bring out the most in them. This team has the opportunity to go far. The Western Conference is wide open because there's so many good teams. The Eastern Conference is wide open because there aren't. And the New York Knicks, I think, are going to be the best team in the regular season in the Eastern Conference, dethroning the Cavaliers, who were the 1 seed last year, who in my mind are going to be the number 2 seed this year. Last year, they shocked everyone, winning 64 games and winning the Eastern Conference convincingly. But this is their time. The Cavaliers have had multiple years now of success in the regular season and heartbreak in the playoffs, and now is their time. For the first time in the Donovan Mitchell era in Cleveland, I think that this team has a legit shot to go to the finals. Last year, they should have, but they didn't. They lost to the Pacers in the semifinals, who ended up going to the finals themselves. But with the East wide open, the Celtics hurt, and the Knicks being their biggest threat, I think that this has to be their year. They've had problems in the past, whether or not they should trade one of their guys. But Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley, these 2 guys bring so much energy down below in the paint on the defensive side of the ball. And on top of that, their offense is tremendous. Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, DeAndre Hunter, if he's healthy this year. They lost Ty Jerome in the offseason, but with these guys that I just named, I'm expecting another great year from the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think the 1 and 2 seed are going to be neck and neck in this Eastern Conference, and I just think that it's going to go Knicks and Cavs and not Cavs and Knicks. Which leads me to my 3rd seed, the Orlando Magic. They made one of the biggest acquisitions this entire offseason, acquiring Desmond Bane. And not only that, he was exactly what they needed this season. What he brings to the table is exactly what the Orlando Magic need. They need a guy who can efficiently score the ball, and they got just that. He efficiently scored over 20 points per game last year for the Grizzlies. And now you add him as the 3rd option behind Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. Last year, this team was the best defensive team in the league, and they were the 3rd worst offensive team in the league. This was a huge need that they needed to address, and they did just that. This team can go far, not only in the regular season, in the playoffs. Watch out. This could be the sleeper team of all sleeper teams. And I know everyone's confident picking them because the Eastern Conference looks weak. But the Orlando Magic have everything that they need to be successful. Hopefully, all their successes on the defensive end last year can stay. And with Desmond Bane added into the mix, their offense can thrive. And that's the big reason that I have them as the number 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. Moving on to the number 4 seed, the Detroit Pistons. Last year, they fully broke out. The year before, they were the laughingstock of the league. But the reason for that is Cade finally asserted himself as that guy for Detroit. Him alongside Asar Thompson, Jaden Ivey, and Jalen Duren. These are all guys who have every opportunity to continue to break out this upcoming season. And if healthy, they're tremendous assets. All of those guys bring a lot to the table. And this team also has depth, and they have hunger, they have firepower, everything that you want in a young team they got. The one problem is they did lose Malik Beasley in the offseason. He was a huge threat offensively, one of the best three-point scorers in the entire league, and they lost him this offseason. But they brought in Duncan Robinson, who we know can score the rock. He's had some troubles in the past few years, but last year he was able to turn those problems into successes, and I think that he'll be able to do it yet again for the Detroit Pistons, who probably won't be relying too heavily on him, but will need him to be efficient like we've seen before. Now, my 5th seed, the Atlanta Hawks, I want to call it a sleeper, but I can't call it a sleeper. Everyone's high on this team this year. The amount of additions that they brought in this offseason that are going to be able to help them was huge. They brought in Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Kristaps Porzingis, and Luke Kennard, who are now able to spread the floor for guys like Jalen Johnson, who should be in the most improved conversation this year. And when you have all of that mixed with Trae Young facilitating the ball, this team could be scary. Their busy offseason is probably going to turn into success. They're loaded with potential. They're loaded with depth. And not only that, Dyson Daniels, who they acquired last year, I mentioned him earlier when I was talking about the Pelicans. He was the most improved player last year. They might have it again this year with Jalen Johnson. He's a threat. Dyson Daniels is one of the best guards that we've seen on the defensive side of the ball in a long time. He will be in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation yet again, and this team has every reason to succeed. I just can't wait to see it in action. Now into my 6th seed, the Milwaukee Bucks. They have maybe the best player in the entire league, a top 3 player, no doubt, in Giannis Antetokounmpo. but losing Damian Lillard hurts them offensively. They added Miles Turner, who's going to help tremendously on the defensive end. I just don't know if that's going to be enough. They had struggles last year at the guard position and with depth. Their depth was addressed a little bit, but their guard problem really hasn't been. I am worried about this team. I don't know how far they can go, but as long as they have Giannis, I'm not picking them to go any lower. Moving on to the 76ers, last year was an absolute disaster class for them. There was no reason for them to flop as hard as they did, yet they did. But this year, I just think that they'll be healthy. Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey. But this year, if they're healthy, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, Quentin Grimes, who looked great after everyone went down last year. They added VJ Edgecombe with the number 3 pick in the NBA draft. Paul George is still there. He looked awful last year, but if he can turn it around even just a little bit, this team should be successful. I have them as my 7th seed in the Eastern Conference. They could be higher if they play better and if they stay healthy. That's just a big if, and until we know whether or not that's the case, I'm going to pick them as my 7th seed. A team somewhat similar to the Philadelphia 76ers, a team that slightly disappointed last year, the Miami Heat. They no longer have Jimmy Butler. They're now led by Bam Adebayo until Tyler Hero comes back, and the two of them, I just don't know how good they can lead a team to be. They added Norman Powell in the offseason. He's a great addition. He's a perfect fit, in my mind, for this team, but I just don't know if that's going to be enough. They have Khalil Ware, former IU Hoosier, and I think that he played pretty well last season. He should have opportunities this year to take a bigger step. I just don't know if all of this will be enough because Hero's not going to be back until mid to late November. And then on top of that, this team still isn't great. I don't know if Ware and Adebayo really fit next to each other either. There are just a lot of questions with this team. So until we know the answers, I'm picking them as my 8th seed. I'm not going to pick them any lower. There are some teams in the Eastern Conference that I just don't expect to be as good, but I'm not going to pick them any higher at the same time. Moving on to the Boston Celtics. If Jason Tatum comes back, this changes everything because his offseason workouts have been impressive. The fact that he's able to dunk, play basketball after he tore his Achilles in the playoffs, I'm extremely impressed. There's a decent chance that at some point this season we see him return, but we don't know that for sure. And can Jaylen Brown lead a team to the playoffs? That's something that we're yet to see. His partner in crime for the year is going to be Derek White. Derek White is the perfect player for any team who wants to win. But the Celtics this offseason addressed their biggest issue, the salary cap. With the new implications to the luxury tax thresholds, they needed to get rid of some of their guys. They got rid of so many guys. They lost Al Horford, Kristaps Porzingis, Luke Cornett. There are just too many questions with this team. Will Jaylen Brown be able to be the number 1 on a playoff team? Will Derek White and Anthony Simons be able to co-align? Last year, they shattered the record for the most three-pointers made in an NBA season, even averaged more three-point attempts than two-point attempts. Do they do that again? Are they successful in doing that? A lot of questions. I have them as my 9th seed making the play-in tournament. And my final team making the play-in, the Toronto Raptors. This team could be great. This team could be terrible. There's so many questions. That's the story of the Eastern Conference this year. A lot of guys that we just don't know how they're going to perform. And since we're making predictions, I'm going to predict them to be in the middle, somewhere that we've seen them a lot the past couple of years. Emmanuel quickly needs to step up. Brandon Ingram now in Toronto needs to step up. Scotty Barnes needs to step up too. These guys have all the tools. They're long and they're versatile, but their problem is consistency. And there are just a lot of guys who are just inconsistent. And they've invested so much into Scotty Barnes. It's his time to prove whether or not he can be the guy. For that reason, the Toronto Raptors are my 10 seed. Too many questions, but I do think that they have a real shot of making these playoffs. My 11 seed, the Indiana Pacers, I have them missing the playoffs. Without Tyrese Halliburton, this is a completely different team to me. Without Miles Turner, they lose a lot on the defensive side of the ball. Andrew Nembhard and Benedict Mathurin are going to need to step up. Pascal Siakam is going to need to be the number 1, and I think this team is good. I just don't think they're great without Tyrese Halliburton. I have them missing the playoffs. At 12, I have the Hornets, LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller. I hope that they can stay healthy and be great this season, but I just don't think they have enough pieces outside of them to go further. 13, Washington Wizards. This team is young, this team is hungry, and this team is fresh. Trey Johnson is a sneaky dark horse for the Rookie of the Year award, but I just think this team's too young, too inexperienced. I don't think that their breakout season is just yet, but I think it's coming soon. So this is going to be one of the most fun teams in the league to watch. I just don't think it's their time. The 14 seed, the Chicago Bulls. I think they sell at the deadline. They've been at the mediocre stage for so long. They've had guys that they could have capitalized on value earlier than they did. Now they have the same situation with Kobe White, Niko Vucevic. I think it's time. They blow it up. And I think we see the Chicago Bulls at the bottom of the Eastern Conference Finally, for you Bulls fans, you at least have a direction. They've been stuck in that mediocre purgatory that gets thrown around. And I think they finally get out of that and they tank to the bottom of the Eastern Conference. And my last team in the Eastern Conference, the Brooklyn Nets. Last year, this team way overperformed. They have scores. Michael Porter Jr. and Cam Thomas is going to be so fun to watch, but I don't trust their defense, and I think they're going to be the worst team in the NBA. And now it's time for my predictions on who is going to win each and every award this NBA season, starting out with Coach of the Year. I think it's going to be Jamal Mosley. What we all know the Magic were last year was great on defense, and now they added a big addition in Desmond Bane. Offensively, I think that's going to transform this team into an elite powerhouse in the Eastern Conference, and I think due to that, Jamal Mosley is going to get this award. My Rookie of the Year is going to be Cooper Flagg. If you want a dark horse, look at Trey Johnson, look at Ace Bailey. These guys are going to have all the opportunities in the world. I think Cooper Flagg, early on in the season, is going to have a huge playmaking role, and I think that's going to be the difference maker. He's got great talent around him when healthy, and I do agree that he's one of the better players that we've seen come into the draft in a long time, and I think he's going to showcase that to the world. For my Sixth Man of the Year, I'm going to go with Anthony Simons. I don't know if he'll end up getting the starting position, but if he doesn't and he comes off the bench, Anthony Simons will be everything that the Boston Celtics are and more. He is an effective scorer who last year was inefficient, and I think that he bounces back. In this Boston Celtics offense, they move the rock and they play good defense, and that creates a lot of opportunities on offense, and I think Anthony Simons will be able to capitalize on that on a better team than the Trailblazers have been. My most improved player is going to be Amen Thompson of the Houston Rockets. He looked really good last year. And now with Jalen Green out and Kevin Durant coming in, that opens up a big playmaking role for him on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, we all know he's one of the better players in the league. And offensively, he now has the opportunity to be the third guy on his team, as now Alperen Şengün and now Kevin Durant will be the 1 and 2 in this offense. He averaged just 14 points per game last year. He struggled from three. He was great on both sides of the ball. If he improves offensively, gets around 19, 20 points per game, continues to successfully guard any position, the sky is the limit with this guy's potential, and I have him as my most improved player of the year. Next up is the defensive player of the year. This one's going to Wembanyama. The only reason he wouldn't get this is because he gets hurt, and I just can't predict that to happen. Wembanyama is going to get this award. Don't need to say too much about that. And lastly, the MVP. I said it earlier that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is one of the best players in the entire NBA, but he's not winning the MVP this year. The award goes to Nikola Jokic. He's going to get his 4th MVP of the year. He has his best supporting cast that he's had in a long time. I'm hoping that this team can stay healthy. I like what David Edelman has done with this team since being promoted to head coach. And I think all of these are just a great mixture, alongside with the fact that Nikola Jokic last year had his best statistical season and almost won MVP away from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's on a 68-win team. I think he gets it done. I think the Nuggets win over 60 games this year as the 2 seed, and I think Jokic gets his 4th MVP. And that leads me into my championship predictions. Who do I have out of the West? Who do I have out of the East? Facing off in the NBA Finals for a chance to win the Larry O'Brien Trophy. In the West, for me, it's between 3 teams. It's between the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Denver Nuggets, and the Houston Rockets. I know if the Clippers stay healthy, I think they could go far too. But for me, those are the 3 teams that really stand out the most. The Rockets are great on defense. Kevin Durant can be the number 1 on a championship team. I just don't know if Amen Thompson or Alperen Şengün can be the number 2. I love this team, but I'm not having them go. For me, it's between the Thunder and the Nuggets. The Thunder just came off a 68-win season. They're the reigning NBA champions. They have everything going for them. But this Denver Nuggets team pushed them to 7 last year and only got better in the offseason. Nikola Jokic is hungry for another. And I know that's hard to say because it almost seems like the guy doesn't care about basketball. But I think that in the Western Conference Finals, we see the Oklahoma City Thunder taking on the Denver Nuggets. I think this goes 7 once again. And I have the Denver Nuggets going to the NBA Finals. And in the East, there's also a 4-way race for me. It's going to come down to the Cleveland Cavaliers, the New York Knicks, the Orlando Magic, and the Atlanta Hawks. But I think it's going to be the sneaky Atlanta Hawks. My reason being, I'm predicting them to be the 5 seed. I think they'll go into the 4 seed against the Pistons, and I think they'll be able to win that. They'll then face off against the New York Knicks, where I think they match up well. Dyson Daniels against Jalen Brunson, when they don't really have a guy who can stop Trae Young. And if they do, can they stop Jalen Johnson? Can they stop Kristaps Porzingis? The Knicks, their other guy is Karl Anthony Towns. And I don't know if that's the guy that you want to trust in your offense come postseason. And then after that, they play the Cavs. I think that they match up well yet again. I think the Atlanta Hawks, they proved it a few years back against the Sixers when they beat them when they were the 5 seed and the Sixers were the 1 seed. They made the conference finals. We know Trae Young can get this team there, and I think they can get them further. And that's why I think the Atlanta Hawks are going to be able to win the Eastern Conference and make it to the NBA Finals where they face off against the Denver Nuggets. And what happens? It's a disaster matchup for Atlanta. It was kind of similar to what we expected last year when the Thunder took on the Pacers, but I think it actually happens this year. I think Denver wins the championship against the Atlanta Hawks. Jokic is not going to be stopped against Atlanta. They've had the star power, and now they have the defense, they have the coaching, and if they have the health, all things will align for Denver, and I think they'll win again. Jokic gets an MVP, a finals MVP, and a championship all in the same season. This would be a historic run from the Denver Nuggets, and I expect it to happen. This would catapult Nikola Jokic in the all-time rankings. This would make the Denver Nuggets one of the best teams of the 2020s, and this would make the NBA a lot more interesting as a whole. If you like this episode, like and subscribe down below. Follow the socials. I'll put them right here. Comment down below, who do you think is going to win the NBA championship this season? No NFL this week. Don't have time as the NBA starts tomorrow. But on Friday, stay tuned for my predictions where I'll talk about my predictions for week 8 of the NFL. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you're excited for the NBA this season, and I'll see you guys on Friday.